Hey guys, welcome back to part 2 of our creepy trip across Japan, where we delve into some of the most well-known haunted spots across Japan. I wanted to release this video over the weekend, but you know, when you get to my age, you sort of forget when your birthday is, and it completely slipped my mind that today, April 7th, is my birthday. So I ended up doing some stuff with my kids and I didn't have time to finish it, but I will do my best to finish it by tonight. Oh, and a shout out to Mango X3C because we share a birthday. Happy birthday to you, and I hope you have a wonderful time celebrating. By the way, it's Sakura or cherry blossom season here. What you can see on the video is where I used to live a few years ago up in Fukuoka Prefecture. My name in kanji characters is Sakura, so it actually means cherry blossoms because I was born when they're pretty much in full bloom across Japan. Just a little aside there. Okay, enough babbling. Today we're exploring the Tohoku region, and I've added links in the description below of Japanese YouTubers who have explored these areas, so have a squiz if you're interested, because you all know by now that I'm too scared to go to any of these places. Alright, let's begin. The Tohoku region consists of 6 prefectures in the north of Japan's largest island, Honshu. The prefectures are Aomori, Akita, Iwate, Yamagata, Miyagi, and Fukushima. It's well known for its countryside, mountains, lakes, hot springs, high-quality rice, and rough winters. The Tohoku region's Pacific coast was hit worst by the earthquake and tsunami of March 11, 2011. They're home to several World Heritage Sites such as the Shirakami Sanchi and Sanriku Fukko National Park in Aomori and the Golden Pavilion at Chusonji in Iwate. If you like the idea of skiing and then dipping into an onsen or hot springs after, the Tohoku region is the place to visit. Iwate has one of the best ski resorts and is home to 2 of the nation's top hot spring areas, Hanamaki and Hachimantai. Can you just imagine this view in the winter? I might have to go visit this year. I also want to tell you about Aoni Onsen, which is a remote hot spring resort with a traditional ryokan lit only by gas lanterns in Aomori Prefecture. It almost looks like it's AI generated, but it's not. Just wow. Let's not forget about the food and the festivals. The Tohoku region has many festivals throughout the year. Aomori is home to the Aomori Nebuta, Hirosaki Nepta, and Goshogawara Tachi Nepta festivals, as well as the Snow Lantern and Cherry Blossom festivals at Hirosaki Castle. There's also the 400-year-old Kamakura Snow Festival in Akita Prefecture. Take a look at this. I personally didn't grow up in Japan, so I'm honestly learning new things about Japan as well, and I should really start exploring the country more. Akita also holds the National Fireworks Competition in Omagari, so you wouldn't want to miss it. I might just die in amazement if I saw this in real life. Let's just take a few moments to look at this beauty. Alright, if that's not enough to tickle your fancy, the Tohoku region also has amazing seafood, lots of sake, and some of the best Wagyu beef in all of Japan. It's also full of beautiful nature. The unique rock formations along the coast of Iwate is spectacular, as is the Ryusendo Cave in Iwaizumi. It's an extensive limestone cave also located in Iwate Prefecture, with large volumes of clear blue water gushing forth from the cave's depths, forming an underground river and 4 underground lakes in the caverns. It's estimated to be about 5 kilometers or 3 miles long, but only 700 meters or 2,300 feet of it is accessible to the public. In Akita Prefecture, you can go hiking up Mount Hachimantai, which is especially beautiful in autumn when the leaves turn color. Last but not least, there are tons of historical places such as the well-preserved Samurai District, which offers a glimpse into Japan's feudal past in the town of Kakunodate in Akita, or you can go visit Yamagata Castle in Yamagata Prefecture. In Miyagi Prefecture, make sure to drop by the city of Sendai, a former castle town, and visit the museum of a famous warrior in Japan, Date Masamune. Known as the One-Eyed Dragon, he came to power during Japan's Sengoku period, which lasted from about 1493 to 1590, an era of civil unrest in Japan in which various feudal lords fought for power. The museum is home to about 97,000 artifacts, including cultural assets contributed by the Date family. Besides the actual armors he wore, the armor and weapons that belong to the family's Sendai domain feudal lords and retainers can also be found there. There's also a fox village where foxes roam free called the Zao Fox Village. Finally, we have Fukushima Prefecture, which also offers relaxing onsen, delicious sake, and snow-covered mountain slopes. But it's probably most well known for the Fukushima nuclear accident which occurred on March 11, 2011. It's said that the Tohoku earthquake and tsunami was partly to blame for the accident, where the electrical grid failed and nearly all of the power plant's backup energy sources got damaged. The subsequent inability to sufficiently cool reactors after shutdown compromised containment and resulted in the release of radioactive contaminants into the surrounding environment. The accident was rated 7, which is the maximum severity on the International Nuclear Event Scale by Nuclear and Industrial Safety Agency, and is regarded as the worst nuclear incident since the Chernobyl disaster in 1986, which was also rated a 7 on the scale. The expense of cleaning up the radioactive contamination and compensation for the victims of the nuclear accident was estimated by Japan's Trade Ministry in November 2016 to be 20 trillion yen or $180 billion. Alrighty, now it's time to get into the creepy side of the Tohoku region. Let's begin. Location 1. Iwakisai no Kawara. The story behind this location can be triggering for some as it includes miscarriages and the deaths of babies and children. Viewer discretion is advised. Iwakisai no Kawara is in Fukushima Prefecture and is a sacred place to make offerings for children who pass away in utero through miscarriages and those who pass away before their parents do. It's a cave on the seaside of Iwaki City with several Jizo statues and is a famous haunted spot which has been featured on many TV shows. There are reports of many ghost sightings and ghosts captured in photos, and there are anecdotes of psychics avoiding the place because there were too many spirits around. Also, people have felt several gazes once inside the cave, and there are stories of some people seeing children's footprints appear when there were no children around. The story of how this place came to be is one that is horrifying and equally sad, and it's all fact. When you go through the cave, it's connected to the beach of Shitairausi. Because there's constant water flow, it's not uncommon for bodies to wash into the cave. That, in addition to all the spirits of babies, many people are afraid of this place. It's believed that the reason this place became a haunted spot is because of an old custom in the Tohoku region, and it's to do with unborn babies and dead, drowned bodies. There's a legend that says when people die, they cross a river called the Sanzu River in order to go to the afterlife. In Greek mythology, the river Styx, a boundary between the world of the living and the dead, is traversed by souls of the deceased, ferried across by Charon, the ferryman of the underworld. So it's something similar to that. It's said that children who die before their parents build stone towers in this place, and if they don't, they'll never be able to cross over. However, when they come close to finishing their tower, a demon appears and destroys it, so the child is eternally doomed and can never go to heaven. This is because it was believed that dying before your parents is the greatest act of filial impiety. The Jizo statues are probably enshrined in the Sai no Kawara to help the spirits of such children to cross over. But why is it built in a seaside cave? The actual memorial sites for these children are located at or near temples, which makes sense because that's where services are held. Well, apparently the key lies in the fact that it's connected to the sea. Even to the present day, drowned bodies wash into these caves due to the tide, and it's said that a long time ago, many of these bodies included deceased babies and children. Because of the constant flow of water, it was likened to the Sanzu River aforementioned, and thus the Jizo statues were placed within the cave. You might be wondering why so many babies washed in. Why weren't they properly buried in a cemetery? A long time ago, many villages around Japan were poverty-stricken. Aristocrats and samurai families monopolized profits, so among commoners, only townspeople could live a decent life at best. Therefore, children who couldn't be raised properly were killed as soon as they were born, and this is where the custom of infanticide began. At the time, abortion and contraception techniques were sloppy, so there were many more unwanted children than there are today. I know, that sounds like a very harsh thing to say. I have 2 kids of my own, so I can't even fathom something like this happening. However, times are very different now. We live in a world where individuals have several options if they have an unwanted pregnancy, which weren't available back then. It really is heartbreaking. The babies were let go in rivers or the ocean, perhaps because parents didn't want a child they killed to be buried close to them. This practice is where the Japanese term of these babies, called mizuko, comes from. The kanji characters are mizu, or water, and ko, or child, so it literally translates to children in water, and in the present day describes babies who have died in utero, via miscarriage, or those that have passed away when it's still a few days old. Population statistics of the time were calculated from birth records of temples and shrines, and it is proven that infanticide was a common practice back then, regardless of famine. Compared to Europe around the same time period, the numbers of infanticide was much higher in Japan. This is believed to be because Christians had a strong sense of chastity while Japanese farmers were sexually promiscuous. And get this, there were even sexual customs called yobai or night crawling occurring, whereby young unmarried men living in rural areas entered houses of unmarried women, crawled into their room, and made their intentions known. If the woman consented, they would have sex and the man would leave before the sun came up. The women's family members might have known what was going on, but they pretended they didn't, and it was actually quite common for young people to find spouses like this. I'm sorry, but can you just imagine this happening today? It's so crazy to me. Anyway, there's a common misunderstanding about the idea that Japanese women in the past were chaste, but this refers to women who were either part of the samurai society or those who were influenced by Christianity after it began to spread across Japan. Now, in addition to everything I just mentioned, it was also believed that a baby only becomes recognized as an individual after they visit a shrine when they're a month old, or even worse, when they turn 7 years old. Now, this insane idea is believed to have existed due to the high rate of infanticide and perhaps also to reduce the guilt of parents who had to kill their children. Japan was also a Confucian country with a strong seniority system and patriarchy. In other words, the idea that children belong to their parents, almost like a commodity, was deeply rooted. It was a grave sin for a child to kill a parent, but parents who killed their own children were not held accountable for such a crime. How truly atrocious. So that's the story behind this place and why the Jizo statues are believed to be built there and why it is considered one of the most haunted places in Japan. The interior of Iwaki City's Kawara was almost completely destroyed by the Great East Japan earthquake in 2011. After that, with the help of local residents and volunteers, the stone Jizo statues in the cave were carried out and are now lined up at the entrance to the cave. It's not a place you should go for kimodameshi and for fun, but if you go there, if you give your condolences and offer flowers and sweets, the spirits there will probably be pleased. Considering this place has a really deep history, I couldn't find that many scary stories about it. In fact, I only found one. So here we go. I was involved in the recovery work in Fukushima City after the 2011 earthquake. The Usuiso area in Fukushima Prefecture is full of pit dwellings of ancient people, and I often went for a walk around there. This area is also known to be quite haunted. During the construction of an apartment building near Kawara, I felt a constant sense of being watched by something invisible, and even during the day, I would look back several times while working alone. One day, when the site manager was making a final check of the piping work in the basement of the first floor, he came running out in a panic. He said that the walls and ceilings were covered in muddy handprints. He was furious, asking who had done this prank before an important inspection of the site, so his subordinate ran in to double check. He too came running out in a panic, his face ashen. According to him, the huge amount of muddy handprints all over the walls belonged to children, which was impossible. All the neighbors had moved to other houses after the tsunami, so it was highly unlikely that children would come here to play pranks in the middle of the night, and it goes without saying that the basement floor was closed due to it being located close to Kawara. The nearby tunnel, which we went back and forth through every day, was also rumored to be haunted, but we didn't feel particularly scared. But Kawara, that place, even though we visited during the day, it was intense when we entered the cave. The sense of fear was overwhelming, and it literally came out of nowhere. People living in the neighborhood say that you should never touch the stones on the riverbed, and when visiting the cave, to make sure you bow your head and put your hands together when entering or exiting the cave. It is not a place to go for kimodameshi or to play pranks. Location 2. Ginzan Onsen. Ginzan Onsen is an onsen or hot spring area in Obanazawa, Yamagata Prefecture, Japan. Its name means silver mine hot spring, and its economy grew due to silver mining and production and eventually transitioned to tourism when it opened dozens of hot spring resorts and ryokan along the central river that runs through the town. The mountains that surround this town yield rich hot spring water that is used both in private hotels and public baths in the city center. The center of town is a pedestrian-only district. After nightfall, the bridges and streets are lit by gaslight. This town saw a sharp rise in foreign tourism thanks to the famous snow-covered sites in the winter. There are no modern buildings within the town. The architecture is constructed from bare timber framing and white plaster that were built during the Taisho era between 1912 and 1926. If you take a look at these photos and videos, does it remind you of something? If you're a fan of Hayao Miyazaki, it should be easy for you. His movie, Spirited Away, which is actually my favorite out of all of his amazing works, was inspired by this town. I never knew this place actually existed, and this is now officially at the top of the list of places I want to visit in Japan. However, I did try to look at some of the hotels and ryokan to gauge the price, and it is expensive, guys. If you want to stay right dab in the middle of this town, I think the cheapest was like $400 a night. Okay, so the hot springs were first discovered 500 years ago by miners working in the nearby silver mines, and an onsen town was founded more than 400 years ago. When silver production waned towards the end of the 17th century, use of the hot springs declined. Later, in the early 20th century, tourism flourished in the onsen town, and several wooden ryokan, some of them multiple-storied, were built along the banks of the Ginzan River that flows through the town. On the way back from a family trip last year to see Ginzan Onsen, we set the navigation to a business hotel at Yamagata Station that I had registered previously. On the way to Ginzan, we drove directly from the hotel, so we should have traveled back along the same route. However, as we drove down the mountainous road at night, it was sending me in different directions. I stopped the car along the way and reset the destination, but no matter what I did, it prioritized the main road. I figured it might be a shortcut, so I followed the directions as I had no other choice, but about 30 minutes into the drive, the streetlights had disappeared. The roads had become much narrower, and there were no more guardrails on the edge of the road to keep us from falling down a cliff. And, to top it off, the roads weren't paved any longer. There was absolutely zero space to do a U-turn, so gripping the wheel tight, I slowly inched forward. After a kilometer of this nightmarish drive, we reached a clearing. It looked like some type of forestry workshop or something. There was a simple hut and what looked like a warehouse with a tall entrance. The navigation system had clearly malfunctioned. I decided to drive into the lot and stop the car so that I could re-register the hotel's address again when all of a sudden we heard a huge thud and the car shook. My dad and I scrambled out of the car while my mum and sister remained seated in the back. We looked around wondering where that sound had come from. There were no rocks or fallen trees on the ground, so we hadn't hit or run over anything. It's hard to imagine we all heard that sound at the same time if it didn't actually happen. But I'll give you the benefit of the doubt and pretend that that's what happened. But then, what about the actual impact we felt that made the car shake? My entire family heard and felt it, so it's really hard to explain it away as just a coincidence. It was pitch dark with only the car's headlights illuminating our surroundings. I figured something must have fallen somewhere deep in the woods and turned around to get back into the car when my mum and sister let out a blood-curdling scream. They were looking all around us. I snapped back around and saw a silhouette slightly illuminated by the light. My initial thought was that it was an animal, but realized from the height and the shape that it was a person. My dad picked up a branch and walked over towards it, trying to sound unafraid and angry, asking the shadow who he was and what he wanted. As soon as my dad stepped towards him, the shadow scattered back into the mountain. We both got so creeped out at the sight that we got into the car as fast as possible and carefully drove out of there. We managed to eventually find a family restaurant on the main road, and we wasted no time going in. We could have gone straight to the hotel, and I can't really explain it, but we wanted to stay somewhere bright and crowded until we calmed down. My mum and sister wouldn't tell us what they actually witnessed, so I guess they just got scared about a random person standing in the darkness looking at us. My dad and I, though, well, we saw that figure go on all fours and scurry into the mountains like an animal. It was the kind of creepiness you get when you see an insect you really hate crawling across the floor. That shiver you get because you're grossed out and scared at the same time. It made me feel physically uncomfortable. Anyway, I had to get to the bottom of it, so I kept nagging my mum and sister to tell me what they saw that night. They both told me something slightly different, so I apologize in advance if it gets a bit confusing. According to them, when my dad and I got out of the car, my sister felt a presence from behind the car, and my mother started hearing whispering voices right next to her. My dad and I finished looking around only to realize we hadn't hit anything. But according to my sister, I was standing in the headlights, motionless. And according to my mum, my dad was standing, motionless. Then they saw us turn around, and my sister saw multiples of me looking into the car, and Mum saw multiple clones of my dad peering into the car. That's when they both let out that loud scream, and as they both heard my dad's voice, my sister saw all of my dad's clones let out a groan and sink into the ground until they disappeared. As my sister sat there in horror watching this unfold, my mum heard giggling and saw all my multiple clones walk back into the woods. After this, they saw my dad and I rush back into the car, our faces pale from seeing that shadow scurry on all fours into the trees, and the rest of the story is as I've explained earlier. My mum and my sister apparently talked to each other, and because their stories were so different, they each thought they'd gone crazy. They didn't want anyone thinking that they were lying, so they didn't want to tell us anything. They made us promise we won't tell anyone, but neither of them are active internet users and don't know about 2chan, so I doubt they'll ever find out. The next 3 stories were shared by the same person who claims to always have strange experiences that have to do more with yokai and mystical entities rather than ghosts. Of course, that's if you actually believe they're real. I thought it was fitting because the first 2 stories are about a fox, which is what my mask on this channel depicts. I'm sure most of you have seen fox masks in Japan, but let me quickly explain what they are because they're a big part of Japanese culture. A fox is called kitsune in Japanese. They're considered to be a type of yokai and are known for their intelligence, magical or supernatural powers, and in particular their ability to transform into humans, especially beautiful women. As they age, their abilities become more powerful. They also like to play tricks on humans in order to lead them astray or make them lose their way, especially when walking around in the woods. They're featured in numerous Japanese stories and legends, including tales of fox spirits who marry humans and foxes who trick or deceive people. They're a significant part of Japanese folklore and culture, often depicted in art, literature, and popular media. A particularly well-known type of kitsune is the 9-tailed fox, which is often depicted as a powerful and auspicious symbol representing peace and prosperity. So, the next 2 stories have to do with the fox spirit, and the third one is about Ginzan Onsen. Ryota and I have been friends since high school, and we continue to hang out even after entering university. Recently, he got a new girlfriend, Haru, and seemed to be in super high spirits. It was during this honeymoon phase of theirs that I suddenly got a call from him. "Hey, something's wrong with Haru. I need your help," is what he said. He was normally a carefree guy who didn't let anything faze him, so hearing his tone of voice over the phone made me realize in an instant that he was really worried for her. I told him I'd go over to his place the following day, but I asked him what happened just to get an idea of what was going on. He said that Haru has suddenly become animal-like, which was scaring him. He continued to explain that they were hanging out at her apartment the previous night when Haru turned to him all of a sudden and began ordering him to go away and to not come closer. She was a quiet girl and he'd never seen her get angry, let alone out of the blue like that, so he immediately felt like something was off. Feeling a bit taken aback and not wanting to exacerbate things, he decided to go home and walk towards the door when Haru began moving around like a playful animal and started grooming herself like one. He was glued to the spot as he watched in disbelief. As he stood there wondering what could possibly happen next, Haru suddenly stopped and asked him what she was doing. She couldn't recall anything from the moment she snapped at him, and they both sat there confused. If this is where it ended, we could chalk it up to Haru playing some kind of weird prank on Ryota. But after this happened, she began to complain of a sensation that something was tugging her left shoulder and sometimes pulling on her arms. That's when he decided to call me because it was too weird to think that she was suddenly starting to suffer from some type of illness. Not to mention, she really did look dazed and confused and had no idea what she had done. Now, what's weird is that I have no psychic abilities or anything like that, so why he decided to call me, I have no idea. Either way, I decided to go see it for myself the next day and spend the night with them. We decided to stay up all night and kill the time playing board games when Haru began to look increasingly uncomfortable. According to Ryota, it was around 4 a.m. when things peaked the night before, and I could feel it. The atmosphere in the room had changed. You know the stagnant air that fills your lungs when you go to abandoned or super old buildings? It was like that, minus the smell. Everything felt really heavy all of a sudden, as if the air suddenly took on some weight. Like I just said, I have zero psychic abilities, but even I could feel it. It was difficult to breathe. 6 a.m. came around. Through that time, we heard strange noises coming from all around, what people refer to as sounds of the house settling. But what was strange was that it only happened during those hours. Haru seemed the most affected by it and almost looked like she was in pain, but nothing else happened other than that. It all felt a bit eerie, but it was what happened right after this that made me reach out to Kaoru. It was starting to get light out and all of us were sleepy as hell by this point. As we all started to fall asleep, something crashed onto the floor. We all sat up and looked around. It was the rice cooker. It had somehow become unplugged and fallen to the floor. Looking from the door into the room, we were to the right where the beds were. None of us could even reach it without having to get up and walk across the room. And a socket that's properly plugged in can't be unplugged unless some force is applied. Something was definitely going on, so I got up and went to have a look. Imagine a typical one-room apartment with a front door, a short corridor in front, a kitchen, a unit bath across from it, and the room at the back. When I stood in front of the kitchen, I immediately felt like something was overlapping with me. I felt tingling all over my body and got goosebumps, but it wasn't cold at all, so it wasn't anything to do with that. I don't know if you've ever had that sensation, but it's creepy as hell. Anyway, I felt that this wasn't anything I could help with, so I racked my brain for someone that was more knowledgeable in these matters, and that's when I thought of Kaoru. I'd never talked to her about ghosts or anything, but she was like an older sister to me, and she had a different vibe to her. I guess I instinctively knew that she was the kind of person who could see and understand these sorts of phenomena. So I took a picture of the specific area in front of the kitchen where I got goosebumps and sent it to her asking if she could see anything. I got a reply straight away. She said, "Yeah, there's something in the entrance." I got goosebumps as I read her reply and told her as much. We both laughed and she added, "I also feel like there's a woman walking around the room." I then decided to call her so she could talk to Haru. After a quick introduction, Kaoru asked her how she was feeling. Haru replied, "I feel like someone's grabbing my right arm and my shoulder hurts. My head's been hurting for a while now too." Kaoru asked if it was her right shoulder that was hurting and asked what else she was feeling. Haru was surprised that she knew which shoulder was hurting and proceeded to explain what she'd been experiencing up to that point. In order to explain how she knew Haru's right shoulder was hurting, Kaoru said that it was because her shoulder started to ache as well when they started talking. She continued to say, "I'm getting an image of your hue and it's blue. Do you have short hair? And you're on the tall side and have a slim build, don't you?" Everything Kaoru said was spot on. They'd never met one another and this was the first time they ever spoke. She was someone who definitely had some kind of power. "Okay, I think I pretty much understand what's going on. I mentioned earlier that I felt like a woman was walking around your room. She's dressed like a shrine maiden with a fox-like face. If I interpret this woman as a fox in disguise, it makes sense that you sort of turned animal-like the previous night. But if that's what's happening, it's out of my hands, so you'll need to go to a shrine for help. I'll look into it, so give me a few minutes, okay?" Haru thanked her, but I'm sure her head was reeling from all this information. How could any of this be true? It sounded so crazy. After a while, Kawara came back on the phone and said there was a shrine near Asakusa that could help her. Kawara booked a flight to fly down from Tokyo where she lived to accompany us to the shrine for a type of exorcism. But before that, she wanted to drop by Haru's apartment to try to gather more information. I was secretly really excited about all of this. I was observing from an outsider's perspective, watching this amazing horror story that I often read on 2chan posts unfold right before my eyes. A week later, Kawara flew down as planned and went to Haru's apartment. She put a mound of salt around the entrance and next to the bathroom. She told all of us to lick the salt too. It was apparently her mum's special purification salt. Ryota, Haru, and I didn't really understand what was going on, but we went along with it. We then entered the bedroom. To be honest, my memory here is a bit hazy, so forgive me if it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Kawara said,
I thought this was a corridor for spirits to pass through, but that doesn't seem to be the case. When you first sent me a picture, I saw several spirits in it, but they're earthbound spirits. And the presence I felt of a woman walking around, I think that's the one that's possessing Haru.
After a few more minutes, we left the apartment and headed toward the shrine in Asakusa. Once there, she told us to bow once before going under the torii gate. We then did the usual routine one does when visiting a shrine. We washed our hands and headed to the shrine to pray. Kawara told us to imagine a fox as we pray and ask God to help Haru. When we did that, we asked what was next, and Kawara replied,
That's it. We're done.
What? We were expecting a much more hands-on exorcism to take place, and I personally felt a bit disappointed at this anticlimactic ending. Kawara gave a special talisman with a power stone inside to Ryota and Haru, and that was the end. Neither of them had had any more strange occurrences after this day. It was all surprisingly easy to deal with. I asked Kawara a few things at a later date because I was so curious and learned a few things. The following is what she said. 1. Apparently, Ryota and Haru are prone to attracting spirits even though neither of them have any psychic powers. They don't even believe in spirits, which is why they didn't notice anything until it manifested itself physically through Haru. And 2. As for the fox that possessed her, the explanation is too long, so I'll come back to it at a later date. But what I can say is that it was quite a strong one, and if Kawara hadn't found the perfect shrine to go for help, she would have had to give up. She didn't tell Ryota and Haru this because she didn't want to scare them. The fox was apparently affiliated with a type of god, but for some reason had fallen to earth. Kawara assumes it committed something evil or went against the god and had no choice but to detach itself and has been wandering around earth since. I asked why it decided to possess Haru, to which she replied,
I don't know. Maybe it was just jealous of her.
The tugging she felt on her arms and shoulders was the fox's doing. The woman's presence that Kawara felt when she spoke to Haru for the first time was also probably the fox in disguise. She also mentioned that because the fox used to be affiliated with a god, it was powerful enough to take Haru's life if it really wanted to, or if we had provoked it in some way. Going to the shrine was apparently a gamble. Kawara wasn't sure if it would work and is really glad that it was enough to exorcise Haru. Who knows what would have happened if it failed? We all went back to the shrine to thank the gods to avoid being punished. According to Kawara, you don't always have to do that, but said that it was highly recommended to do so when one experiences any form of possession that has to do with foxes. I finally asked her where the fox spirit was now, and she shrugged, saying,
I don't know. It's probably possessed someone else by now.
So, this is the end of this story, but after this experience, my friendship with Kawara became much stronger. She's shared a lot of her experiences with me, so I'll try to share them with you at a later date. For my next post, though, I'll tell you a bit more about her. I'm back! I shared the story about fox possession the other day, and I'm back with 2 sequels to that story. The first is that the fox spirit had actually come to visit me and Kaoru as well. According to her, it came to her place in Tokyo the day she talked to Haru. I remember her explaining to me that spirits are like massive electronic waves, so depending on the entity, it might be possible for them to go to another location through the phone. Her mother asked Kaoru if she'd brought anything home with her because she kept seeing a woman with a fox-like face. Apparently, both her parents and her older sister can also see spirits. An entire family of mediums or psychics, or whatever you want to call them. Sounds like fun. Anyway, she always had a bracelet on to ward off evil, but a week before all of this went down, the bracelet broke, which made her furious because it was something she treasured and heavily relied on. The break in the bracelet was so clean as if someone had literally cut it with scissors. It wasn't frayed or anything. And when her dad happened to see it, he warned her.
I'm not going to help you. I don't want to get involved with any strange entity. You should also steer clear.
We all know now that the entity was indeed too powerful for Kaori to handle by herself, but her dad felt all of this just by looking at her broken bracelet. What kind of reality are they living in? It's crazy. Apparently, the fox spirit continued to appear in their home from time to time and walked around, but it was something they often experienced as a family, so they didn't pay it any mind. Kaoru was definitely pissed off about her broken bracelet though. As for me, I freaked the hell out because it appeared in front of me in an unexpected place. It happened during the week we were waiting for Kaoru to fly down from Tokyo. I was at a friend's house just hanging out. From her balcony, there's a rice field in front and a road to the left. I stepped out to have a smoke when I saw a black mass under one of the streetlights on the road. I initially thought it was a drunk person sitting on the road, but the longer I studied it, I realized it wasn't a human at all. It had 4 legs and ears big enough to see from a distance. When I saw this, I was overcome with a weird mix of emotions like fear and anger, all rolled into one, but I quickly snapped out of it and called my friend out so she could see it too. By the time she came out though, the thing had disappeared and she just laughed at me and called me crazy. So that's what Kaoru and I experienced on different days. As an aside, after all this went down, I've been unable to enter Inari shrines. An Inari shrine is a type of Japanese shrine used to worship the god Inari, who is associated with foxes, rice, household well-being, business prosperity, and general prosperity. When I go in, I get chills and feel nauseous, so I can never stay for a long time. I told Kaoru about it and she said that I probably smelled like that fallen fox and they didn't want me anywhere close. Well, that really sucks for me because the Fushimi Inari Shrine was one of my favorite places to visit. Now, about Kaoru. I wanted to introduce her to you guys in a bit more detail. She posted a thread that asked, "I'm a medium, do you have any questions?" on an online forum and summarized it for me, so I'm going to share that with you all. After I discovered the true power that Kaoru and her family have, I was naturally curious about it all, as I'm sure you are. She told me she takes on strange and supernatural cases, but only for her friends. She never accepts payments and just asks that we pay for any transportation costs if needed, and for the talismans she makes by hand to give to her friends. She's such a good person. I told her she should turn it into a business, but she refused and said there were many others who were much more powerful than she was. Say what now? So apparently, there's an industry for gifted people like her. She also had a mentor, but he passed away before he could teach her how to perform exorcisms, so whatever she knows now was self-taught. I'm a fanatic when it comes to paranormal things, so I couldn't hide my excitement when she was telling me all these things. I mean, I've read about it on 2chan before, how mediums fly around the country in order to help those in need. They actually exist, and my friend is one of those people. How cool is that? I asked her how she feels paranormal entities, and she said that most of the time she can't see them with her physical eyes. It's more an image that directly hits her brain, so it's almost like telepathy. And that makes sense because she described spirits as being a mass of electromagnetic waves. She went on to describe how she can't perform exorcisms indefinitely because they consume her energy. If you imagine a game, these entities have a certain level, and if their level is higher than Kaoru's, she can't get rid of them. And when she can, her energy points are consumed, so she needs a while to recover after a single job. After Haru, she took 2 days off to recover from the exhaustion. Furthermore, she said it's literally like shaving time off of your lifespan and said she probably won't live that long. And then she said that there's a hierarchy among spirits with gods being at the top, followed by entities related to gods, then vengeful spirits, and so on and so forth. The fox spirit that possessed Haru was in the second tier, and thus too strong for her to exercise. Psychics like Aiko Gibo and Reiko Ogata are quite powerful, so she reckons they would be able to exercise spirits like them easily. No questions asked. So, that's about it for this post. Next time, I want to share something that happened when I went to Ginzan Onsen in Yamagata Prefecture with Kaoru. Just a quick note here, if you don't know Aiko Gibo, please have a listen to part 1 of this series to know more about her. Following on from the previous stories that I shared, this is something I experienced because of my friend Kaoru. It happened when we went to Ginzan Onsen in Yamagata Prefecture. I had always wanted to go there, and we wanted to go when it was cheaper, so I made a reservation when a good deal came up. I was really looking forward to this trip, but I was caught up in yet another strange experience whilst there. Let me note that this is a true story, so if you know the name of the specific inn, etc., please keep it a secret so that it doesn't bother the locals. Thank you for your cooperation.
I can't find anything about it on the internet, but Ginzan Onsen is actually a haunted spot. Really? Okay.
This trip to Ginzan Onsen turned out to be a scary experience. Kaoru and I have known each other for about 7 to 8 years now, and she's always told me how beautiful Ginzan Onsen is. I love hot springs too, so we had always talked about going there together, but never did. Until the Go-To Travel campaign started during the COVID-19 pandemic in order to boost tourism a bit more to help keep local businesses afloat. That was the deciding factor because they were giving huge discounts and we finally planned for it. I had been looking forward to it for a long time, and when I was looking into the surrounding tourist spots with Kaoru, she said those words. And it's true. When I tried to look into haunted spots around Ginzan Onsen, nothing popped up. According to her, however, the last time she visited, she felt them all around her and knew it was a place with high spiritual activity. I can't deny that I'm also very interested in the occult, so when Kaoru told me this, it only piqued my interest. After booking the trip, I headed to Yamagata Prefecture full of anticipation. She was waiting for me when I got off the bullet train, and she drove us the rest of the way. First thing we did when we got there was check in. I won't name the place, but trust me when I say that it was the most luxurious place I'd ever stayed in. It was a mix of Japanese and Western styles and was extremely beautiful. It definitely wasn't somewhere I could afford if it weren't for this special COVID deal. A string of bad luck followed us from this point forward, but it's nothing scary, so I'll skip all of that. After we finished eating, we didn't have anything to do and were bored, so Kaoru asked,
"You want to go see something scary now?"
And I quickly agreed. There's a small waterfall at the very far end of the hot spring town, and according to Kaoru, there were many spirits around it. As we neared the edge of the town, the number of street gas lamps became few and wide in between, and the atmosphere seemed to change entirely. After another minute or so of walking, a small waterfall about 10 meters or 33 feet high came into view. We were on the left side of the waterfall, and to the right was a shrine peeking out of a cave sitting atop a stone cliff. When I crossed over the bridge, there was another cave that was so close to the waterfall that the water from it would lightly splash into it. Kaoru said it was a shrine to Kishimojin. Kishimojin is the goddess of mercy, a bringer of happiness and a giver of children and easy delivery, although you wouldn't imagine all of that from the ominous kanji characters. However, it was not Kishimojin that Kaoru saw in there. We continued to walk another 10 meters or 33 feet or so from the bridge to the shrine when Kaoru stopped walking. She said she couldn't go any further and told me to continue if I wanted. Unlike her, I didn't feel anything, so although it freaked me out, I slowly continued on until I reached the entrance of the cave. I peered inside, and indeed, there was a shrine deep in the cave in the pitch black. Again, I didn't feel anything, and I was too scared to venture into the darkness by myself, so I turned around and went back to where Kaoru was waiting for me. She later told me that when I was standing there, countless hands reached out from the cave, trying to drag me in. We made our way towards the stone cliff where another shrine was sitting inside yet another cave on top of it. Again, we walked about 10 meters towards it, and again, Kaoru stopped. She told me I could continue following her, but to do it at my own risk from this point forward. She was walking in front of me this time, and not wanting to be left behind, I decided to follow her, although each step felt extremely heavy. And with each step, the presence of something waiting for us somewhere inside the cave grew stronger. This time, I definitely felt it, so I believed Kaoru's words when she said what she said. We were at the entrance to the cave now, and I stopped next to Kaoru and looked inside. The shrine was about 2 meters or 6.5 feet high with a hole in the middle. A red cloth was draped over it to cover the hole, and inside was a Jizo statue. There was a narrow space on either side of it, just big enough for a small child to fit in. As I looked closely, I saw something move in the gap to the right of the statue. I started to ask Kaoru what it was when I instantly froze, my body going stiff from fear. That something was looking back at me. I can't remember if it had a face or not, but I clearly remember its yellow eyes. It seemed like ages, but when I was finally able to break eye contact, the thing seemed to disappear. We walked back to our hotel in silence. Kaoru later told me she had no idea who or what the multiple hands she saw in the first cave belonged to. She believes, however, that the thing in the second cave with the yellow eyes was a yokai, which are a class of supernatural entities and spirits in Japanese folklore. What I've encountered in my life thus far have all been yokai. I don't know what classification it would be in, but I didn't get any sense of malice. I do have a theory about the first cave. I think it's inhabited by a fallen god, and since no one comes to pray to it, it's trying to consume people's souls out of spite. So that's what happened at Ginzan Onsen. After that, I enjoyed my trip as usual. I'm thinking of checking out Tono City next and see what kind of yokai I can encounter there. Like I said at the beginning, this story is all true. So if you ever go to Ginzan Onsen, I highly recommend taking a walk around the waterfall. Location 3. Kudoji Temple. Located deep in the mountains of Mount Gokoku, Kudoji Temple is famous as a tourist destination and power spot, but in fact is also very famous as a haunted spot in Aomori Prefecture. It's most famous for a ghost painting by Maruyama Okyo, who pioneered sketch painting and is widely known for being the first to paint a footless ghost. It's open to the public for only 1 hour from noon on May 18th every year, and there's been a long-standing superstition that it always rains on the day it is open to the public. This temple is also related to the radish god that appears in Spirited Away. A recent investigation revealed that the painting was donated by Morioka Shuzen Motonori, a senior retainer of the Hirosaki domain, who lost his wife and concubine in succession and had Maruyama Okyo painted as a memorial for them and then donated it to the temple. If you do some research on this temple, you'll find information that tells you not to go because apparently a lot of strange phenomena occur there. The following are some supposedly haunted spots and rumors surrounding this temple. 1. At the top of the stone steps, there are over 200 Kannon statues. They're said to have been built to commemorate the people who died in a landslide that once occurred here. Could the many paranormal phenomena reported at Kudoji Temple be due to the spirits of those who died in the landslide? 2. The small shallow pond in the temple grounds is also said to be haunted. Apparently, if you call out the name of a deceased person while there, you will see that person's face appear on the surface of the water, and if you look into the pond, you'll see your face reflected at the exact moment of your death. 3. There are 227 stone steps leading from the temple gate to Kudoji Temple. There's a handprint somewhere on these steps, and if you accidentally step on it, misfortune will follow you. There are many photos out there of people who have taken a picture of this handprint, as you can see here. 4. There's a phone booth at Kudoji Temple, and some of the rumors include things like the phone starts ringing suddenly, and if you answer it, you'll see a woman's ghost appear close to it, and if you take a picture there, you might capture something from the other side. A man apparently took a selfie there, and when he looked at it, he saw that his head was missing from the neck up. On the way back home, he got into a car accident and suffered a serious neck injury. There's an old temple called Kudoji in Hirosaki City, Aomori Prefecture. I heard the following story from a friend in the year above me when I was still in uni. He went to the temple with 3 of his friends for kimodameshi, or a test of courage, and drove to the foot of the mountain where the temple is located. They had just gone to an onsen altogether and stopped by on their way home. It was already nighttime, and being deep in the mountains, there were no street lights, so it was really dark. So dark that you couldn't even see the face of the person standing next to you. Using their phones to light up the area, he climbed the hundreds of stone steps leading to the temple itself. After a while, he saw the temple come slowly into view. It was around then that he suddenly felt incredibly uncomfortable. He felt as if someone was watching him. It couldn't be that of his 3 friends who were following him up the stairs. The hairs on his arms stood up, and he felt a tingling sensation run up his spine. He stopped where he was, turned right around, and told his friends that they had to get out of there. They ran back down as fast as they could, being careful not to trip and crash down the steps head first. They practically dove into the car that was parked at the foot of the steps and drove off straight away. After a bit of silence, one of his friends asked,
"So, how was it? Did you guys see any ghosts?"
My friend said,
"I didn't see anything, but something definitely didn't feel right. You probably felt it too, didn't you?"
To which the other guy replied,
No, 'cause I didn't go."
He was apparently wearing a pair of worn-out sandals since their original plan was to just go to Onsen and have a relaxing night. He certainly wasn't planning to climb over 200 stone steps. So anyway, one of his sandals broke and he decided to head back down and wait for the others in the car. He said that he even called out to them to let them know he was heading back down, to which they all replied, "Okay." So, there were only 3 of them going up the stairs. my friend himself, and 2, not 3 of his friends following from behind. But my friend remembers seeing 3 people when he decided to turn around and run back down to the car. Who was that third person? Anyway, the next day, the 3 who had gone up the stairs came down with a fever of nearly 40 degrees Celsius or 104 degrees Fahrenheit and were in bed for 3 days. According to locals, if you visit Kudoji Temple at night, you'll be possessed by something, and they strongly advise against going there for kimodameshi. Kudoji Temple in Aomori Prefecture is a famous haunted spot that you will definitely know about if you live there. And if you know anyone who's gone there for kimodameshi, then they will most likely have some scary experiences to share with you. Although I haven't seen the real thing, my friends and I knew there was a famous painting there of a ghost without legs. We'd also heard a bunch of rumors surrounding the area. So, thinking it would be a great place for kimodameshi, we all decided to check it out. The temple sits in a mountain adjacent to Hirosaki City where the air is crisp. Going there in the middle of the night was creepy to say the least. Although we were all excited in the car, we couldn't prolong that same feeling as we saw the hundreds of kannon statues. When we took a photo near the torii gates with the stone steps leading up, there was a strange apparition in the back that looked like a woman. Well, we all went screaming back to the car and got the hell out of there. We were scared shitless on the drive home, and then from somewhere we heard someone clapping. But looking around, none of us were clapping our hands, nor was it an occasion to clap our hands gleefully. Again, we all freaked out and all the girls were crying. Fortunately, we didn't get into any accidents and arrived safely back home. The next day, we all skipped uni and went to get an exorcism. All the locals know not to go there at night for fun, and this experience really taught us a lesson to always listen to the locals. Location 4. The Old Mizusakai Tunnel. This is a story about a famous haunted spot that I heard from my friends. It's something that a friend of mine experienced, so I don't know how true it is, but if you're interested, please have a read. Let's call this person Taku for the story's sake. They decided to visit Old Mizusaki Tunnel in Miyagi Prefecture, a place that no local would ever go near. It's a place that even a famous psychic on TV said was really dangerous. So, Taku loved going to haunted places and traveled around Japan to check them out on a fairly regular basis. His next destination was this tunnel. It was already 2 a.m. when he arrived with 2 other friends. The 3 of them often went around together and weren't scared of anything, often screaming, laughing, being obnoxiously loud, and messing around every time they were in one of these supposedly haunted spots. It was exactly the same this time around. Once they got near the tunnel, they got out of the car and began walking into it without a second thought. A cold breeze swept through it, but nothing unusual about that. They weren't interested in what was inside the tunnel, but what was waiting for them on the other side. They'd heard that someone had unalived themselves by setting the car they were sitting in on fire. Once they came out of the tunnel, they found an abandoned car sitting not too far away. It was crushed in some places and in complete disrepair. They couldn't believe their eyes. They walked up to it and peered inside, but there was nothing there. They felt let down when they didn't find anything of significance and continued studying the car's interior. That's when one of them noticed that there was a black human shape burnt into the back seat behind the passenger's seat, almost as if a person had been sitting right there. There was no body or anything else lying around to make them think that it was real. Someone else probably came by some time ago and put the marks there on purpose as a prank. So, they messed around a bit by taking turns climbing into the driver's seat and played around with the wheel. In the end, they didn't encounter any supernatural phenomena and they returned home feeling disappointed. It was about a week later when something strange happened. My friend couldn't get in touch with Taro. He didn't pick up his mobile phone and he was living alone, so his parents had no idea where he was either. As his friends were searching for him, his parents got a call from the hospital. When they went to go see him, Taro was laying in bed with a few bruises and scratches. A few days later, when my friend finally met up with him, he explained what had happened. According to him, he was driving one night when he suddenly blacked out, and when he woke up, he was in the hospital. He had no clue how he ended up there, but according to the doctor, the ambulance had brought him in. Everyone told him it was a true miracle that he had only suffered minor injuries because the scene of the accident was anything but. The car had wrapped itself around a utility pole and was totaled, had to be completely written off. The police did note something strange, however. The back seat behind the passenger's seat was completely intact. The investigators were scratching their heads because this didn't make any sense when calculating the velocity at which the car crashed into the pole. If anyone has any thoughts on this, please let me know. Alright, that's it guys for part 2 of our creepy journey across Japan. If you made it this far, thank you for listening and I hope to see you again in the next video. Cheers.